The TONEX editor is finally out. Let's have a play around with it and dial in some sounds. I've got my Les Paul plugged into the TONEX pedal. I'm coming out of that in stereo to my audio interface. This has been a long-awaited feature request for a lot of people. When I first demoed this pedal not long after it came out, the thing that really frustrated me was that there wasn't a dedicated software editor where you could actually dial in sounds. There was a librarian, and the librarian is still featured over here if you click on this tab. But now we can see we've got a list of all the presets that are in our pedal. We can go through element by element. Say I want to tweak the noise gate, the amp, the IR, the compressor, the modulation, delay, or reverb. I can do all of that with the software editor and then have it loaded into the pedal. So let's start out with an amp capture. This is a capture of my Marshall JCM 2000 DSL-50. I have paired it up with my free cab IR that you can get in the video description. I really like the sound of this capture. I might just go through a couple of different captures in here though. Bunch of crunchy captures in there. I really like these. I also like the ADA MP1 capture that I made of my modded ADA. This is probably my favorite capture that I've made. My captures are linked in the video description, along with the IR if you want to try it. Very easy to scroll through that. I normally use one cab IR on just about everything, but if you're using amp and cab captures, you can link them with a cab or one of the VIR models in here, which is a nice little feature. I appreciate that, and I feel like that would be really cool to have across a bunch of different modelers where you can just basically say, hey, you know, if I'm using this amp, I'm using this cab model. If I'm using a different amp, I'm probably using a different cab model. But for me, I like the same IR and everything, so I like having them unlinked. Let's just hear maybe a clean amp capture on here. I really like this JTM 45 capture that I made, especially on the neck pickup of this guitar. Go in here and tweak all of the parameters that are on the pedal. Like if I want a bit more gain out of that, or I wanted to pull a little bit of bass and add a little bit of mid-range in there, I can do that. The cool thing about the EQ is that you can place it before the amp model on there. So if I wanted to like really push the mids and pull out more bass and maybe some treble, I could set the mid-range frequency. Maybe let's do 1000 hertz on there, and the treble frequency I could bring down, say to about 1600 on there. So setting this up essentially as a pre-EQ boost. I would would set this pedal up to use it live is probably just use the A, B, and C buttons for my 3 main sounds. So let's just say I was doing a typical rock gig. I'm going to go back to that DSL capture that I've got in the drive section. We'll just roll with that at the stock settings. What I like as well is I can reset the chain if I want to and take all of the EQ settings back to their neutral position. So this and the IR and maybe a little bit of reverb on there. Let's go for, say, a plate reverb. I'm going to turn the time down to 1.5. I'll add the tiniest amount of pre-delay and I'll turn the mix down maybe to about 15% on here. I want this last in chain, but I can have it post, so sort of after the comp, but before the modulation delay. So just put it at the end. Let's hear the reverb when I turn it on. That's still quite a large reverb on there, even with the time at the minimum. I'm just going to leave it there. So that could be, say, my main rock rhythm sound on there. Is the compressor on? It's not, but we could place this beforehand if I wanted to use the comp like a boost in front. So I'm just setting up my chain over here. It would be nice maybe to have some modulation on there. I think... maybe a phaser in front of the amp would be a vibe, but a chorus after the amp could be cool. Let's go for a low rate on here. Have a listen to what it does. Let's do that. I kind of like that subtle amount of grease on there where the chorus is being used almost like a stereo widening effect, just keeping the depth down nice and low and the rate low. Works pretty well. It's just adding some space on there, as is the reverb. We're just using the reverb to add like a bit of density to the sound on there. So now that I've got that, let's hit save on this. So that is saved. And what I want to do now is, I don't know, maybe let's take the compressor and turn it on and see if I can just crank the gain up and use this as a gain boost in front of... That's not too bad. I would prefer like a dedicated drive model in there or something, but cranking up the gain on the compressor is doing the thing. That actually makes it a little bit easier to play as well, which is pretty cool. So let's hit this. Can I save as? I can save as. Let's save it as, I don't know, Rock Rig. Oh, there we go. That's totally deleted now. LT Rock Rig 2. I should have given this a better name, but we'll save it in slot. Oh my God, this is terrible. How on earth am I meant to know where I am? Am I in bank 6? No, that doesn't look like bank 6 at all. I thought I was in bank 6A. So I'd love to know where my actual preset is over here. So my rock rig, are we in bank 00? What have I done? All right, maybe it's this one. Let's hit that and hit save. All right, that has saved. Okay, cool. That didn't make a lot of sense, but I've got it in there. And what I would actually like on this as well is some delay, because I'm going to use it as a lead delay. One complaint I had when they added these effects was like, say you go, oh, I want digital ping pong. And then you go, no, I want tape ping pong. It resets back to tape normal. So let's go tape ping pong. I know I like the sound of this, 600 milliseconds. I do find it a bit frustrating that, this is only in 10 millisecond increments. You can double click it and punch these in, but if you wanted 615 milliseconds, you can't do it on here. We'll take this mix and bring it down to about 25%. Bit of stereo chorus on there, bit of delay, a little bit of reverb. All right, let's hit save on that one. One thing that I do like having as an alternative is a dotted eighth note rhythmic delay. So let's do this. Let's go to a normal tape now, and I'm going to sync this. So we'll have the time set up as a dotted eighth note over here. You can see up in the top right, I can set the global tempo there. I can go pre or post on this. So I can actually place this before the amp if I want. So what I'll do is I'll turn the compressor off. I've got my delay in front of the amp, so I can probably get away with a lower mix and less feedback on there. I'll leave the chorus on because I like that kind of stereo widening effect. Let's have a listen to this. I mean, they're the three main sounds that I'm probably going to be using on a gig. The rhythmic delay is a really nice cheat code, especially if you're just playing in a trio to add some spice and excitement. It's the old Edge trick, but so many players like Pat Travis Band, Rush, so many of my favorite bands use this trick as well. And placing it in front for this preset should be pretty cool. I just have to save it into where am I? Bank 6. I want this slot C, so we'll go save as. I also don't know why the save as is so small. And one other thing, which I'll get to in a second, so we'll call this Rock Rig. There we go, I've deleted the whole thing again. I have to type the whole name in. LT Rock Rig 3, let's put it in 6C. We'll go there, we'll hit save. And now, on my foot switches, I can go from my rhythm sound to my lead sound on B to my rhythmic sound on C. That's pretty cool. I'm happy with those 3 presets in there. And what I would do is maybe save them to another bank and swap out the main capture, say with my Mark IV capture or my ADA capture, and build versions of those banks in there that I can use so that I've got sort of my rhythm scene, my lead scene, and my rhythmic delay scene in there. One thing that I find really weird is like you can see the name of the preset up here, but you can't double click that or do anything to change the name. You have to come down here, right click it, and there's this tiny little thing that says rename on it. So that'd be something maybe for a future update in there. Make this bigger so you can see what the name of the preset that you're using is. And then like all of this over here, I feel like I don't need to see the name of all the presets all the time. That could be, say, relegated to the librarian or a preset list on there. And we can make this a whole lot bigger and easier to use and click on. Just one very minor frustration. You know, I have to applaud IK for getting this out. This makes TONEX, and especially TONEX 1, so much more usable, and even the free software on there having all of this, I think is super awesome. These are great value adds. It's not costing anybody anything. I do wish it came out at launch so that we could have complained about some of the shortcomings at launch and they would have been fixed by now, but you know, enough laying into them about that. They're just a few suggestions and I feel like they would make everybody's life a little bit easier on there. So let's say I did want to do that and I want to take, say, my, what are we going to do? My Mark IV capture. Let's go high gain. I've got my Mark IV-B capture here. Let's bump that in and I'll go save as. Let's put that now into bank 7. I'll save it over 7A and we will call this, I don't know, let's call this LT Filth 1. So we'll have a big chunky Mark IV sound with some stereo widening, some reverb, and oh, I don't have the comp or the delay on. I'll have to add those. That's pretty cool. Let's do this now. We've got that save. Let's go to Rock Rig 2, and I'll swap out this capture for capture of the Mark IV at the same settings. It just had the fat switch on. I think it's this one here. And then I'll go and I'll save this one into, what was it, 7B. It's a little bit hard to keep track of, but we'll call it LT Filth 2. And then I've got that one. This should be pretty fun. Oh yeah, let's go back to Rock Rig 3 and we'll swap this capture out for the Mark IVB capture in there, and I will now save this as 7C. All right, let's do that. Sailing the 7 seas. That's not a terrible pun that anybody actually needs to hear while I'm doing this, but I'll pop it in. I'll make sure that the rhythmic delays are working, and then I should be done. As usual, I've focused on dirty and crunchy sounds on here, but for example, if I go back to Filth 2 over here, and I didn't want to have that stereo widening effect on there, I could place this pre, and I could set it up as, say, I don't know, a phaser with a really low rate and low depth, just to give it a bit of extra movement on there. I'll turn the comp off as well, so that we can just basically hear the capture. Let's turn the delay off for now as well. The way that phaser sounds on there. You can access the librarian, like I said before, so you can manage not only the presets but also the tone models that you've got on there and get access to the TONEX ToneNet. Up here you can get access to the tempo setup, global setup, library, and firmware. So global setup, I've got my input trim at 0. I played around with a couple of different settings. I think by default it was at 6, but with this guitar it sounds fine at 0. I'm not too sure what the best practice is there. Maybe someone much smarter than me can let me know in the comment section below. You've got your external control set up on here, so you can set up what type of switch you're using on here. So you can see there's a bunch of different options and what they are assigned to. There's also the MIDI setup on here so that you can take care of the MIDI channel if MIDI through is on, or it's set as a MIDI merge on there, as well as the clock mode. You can set up the tuner, including the reference frequencies. For anyone who wants to know how low can this go, we can get down to, oh, wow. Man, we can set A415. That's pretty wild. I wonder if you can get like 450 something, 455. I mean, real men tune to like A's 470, right? So that's a shame that it's not in there. And then the general setup, you can set up the naming to just be the name, the program and name, or the bank and name over there. And then what I also find interesting on here is having the switch activation, whether it activates on the release or on the press. You can disable the global cabinet on there if you want. The user mode, you've got easy and advanced. I mean, we're all going to sit on advanced, right? I feel like as guitar players, we always go easy mode. Why would you want to have easy mode? I want to tweak these things. And then you can also set up things with the operation mode, having it as an interface or in live mode. I'm using it in live mode. The USB routing, whether it's stereo or dual, which I find is a nice little feature kind of buried away in there. I've waffled on for long enough now. Go and check out the TONEX editor. It is a free download. You will need to update the IK product manager and then do the TONEX update and then update the firmware on your pedal, and then you can use the free editor on there. If you're using TONEX, let me know your thoughts. Are you using the pedal? Are you using TONEX One? Are you just using the software? Do you have a paid or a free version? I'm always really curious to know how people are going about this, because there is a lot of functionality in the free version, which I think is fantastic and probably something that I have overlooked in the past. There's a few workflow tweaks that I would like to see added to this, mostly that naming one. Like I'd love to be able to double click on here and change the name rather than have to come down and right click to change the name. But again, thanks so much for watching the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you like what I do, there's links to my Patreon and the music that I make with my band Ragdoll in the video description. See you on the next one.